time. And his son Sam's here. Big shout out. Big shout out, Sam.
First of all, this is actually like, I'm actually truly, genuinely interested in questions. Most of the Q&As I've done in my life is mostly bullshit. And kind of know what you're going to say, most of it's not true. I really, really want to know because I saw this movie. I was actually going to, Josh, the director, he's got to see my movie. Before it came out, I watched it once. And I was like, this movie can't be that good. I gotta watch this again. Hold on a second. Watched it again. I was like, Jesus Christ, this is incredible, this movie. And I'm really, really fascinated by and interested, and that's what introduced my son as an interesting footnote because I'm in the movie business. And I have sets that I go to, people that I meet. This dude never wants to come, ever once. And tonight, he was like, where are you going? I was like, go to this Q&A. What was it? It's an actor, Timothée Chalamet. Looked at me like, you cannot be this fucking stupid. That's the goat. I was like, that's the fucking goat, Dad! I have you to thank for having my son with me tonight. This is like an exquisite movie, and it evolves tonally.
It's gonna go off. Ben's gonna go here. Come on, man. Shake your dad, Sam!
This is a performance that has to step along with the movie that starts. When it first started, I was like, okay, it's a late 24 movie. It's kind of work-class neighborhood shoe salesman. It's going to be that thing. I don't know how ping pong works into it. But it's going to be that story. And then it does this incredibly richly detailed version of that. And then it opens and steps into like Mrs. Robinson. With this whole other dynamic and this whole other side emerges. Throughout, there's about 5 stages of the movie where I feel like it opens and evolves, and it's an extremely difficult movie to make. And it's, I think, incredibly well done by Josh, but the whole thing only works if you're deeply invested in and connected to the protagonist. And this is a protagonist that I think a lot of actors would not want to play this part. Because there's this conventional wisdom that, like, you gotta be likable, you gotta be a great guy, you gotta be a hero. You know how every movie there's always like, he's the best there is. Whatever it is, he's the best tax preparer we've ever seen. I've actually played that part. And yet, in order to generate pathos and empathy, in order to dig into the actual human experience, which I think this is really an expression of, you have to be vulnerable, you have to be real, you have to be all of the things at once. Tell me what you thought about when you first read the script and what your first reaction to it.
I was just stoked. I was stoked to work with Josh, who I've been dying to work with after UNCUT GEMS, a good time. And to your point, I feel like it's two-sided. I'd like to say it's 50-50, but really it was handled by Josh. That's why I'm so thrilled to do this Q&A with you, because you've mastered both sides of the camera, and I've mastered one side of the camera, if that, And I should have said master.
I will tell you what, you are 30 years old, and fuck if you haven't mastered.
Oh, man.
I'm really not ashamed not that it's extraordinary. Like, most actors, it's hard to get this business. It's hard, it's even harder now. And it's hard to find good roles, and it's hard to be good in them. And it's unheard of to achieve what I see as mastery at this level. It just makes me think, kind of enviously, oh my God, this guy's gonna have the best 30 years of any actor out there. Because you bring the gifts and the ambition to do both something great and something interesting, but you lay yourself out there and take all the risks, and you understand the best partners to do it with. And that's it. That's really all it takes. But so you responded to Josh, you wanted to work with him. What was your take on the part? What did he tell you about the guy? What was his, and what was your relationship with him in terms of some directors, they don't talk, they just try to do the thing, we shoot it, we don't talk very much. Some directors talk too much. It just depends what some want to be right inside the character. What was your work relationship like?
Well, you nailed it in framing it like he was sort of an unlikable character or antagonistic at times, because it's one of the chief things Josh instilled in me immediately was to not be judgmental towards Marty, was to take his point of view. I think, as you said, talking about the best tax man that ever prepared taxes, it can be harder to play something that's archetypal, I think, like a totally redemptive hero or a totally horrible villain, because you gotta hit that note each time. This guy's messy and human and real, and I feel like we all know someone like Marty who's equally, at times, aspiring, maybe believes in his dreams as much as he is a fucking scumbag, and somebody who operates purely out of self-interest. But as you know, following your career and your Boston roots, Boston now, so we're
Boston people. Patriots!
They lost LA, man. I didn't know that. Holy shit. Any New York people in the house? And it turns into New York Boston. Just those fuck, I lost my train of thought. Just these people that they gotta have their back exclusively. Because when you're young, when you have a big dream, when people don't believe in it, particularly when it has something to do with something called ping pong, that doesn't inspire confidence necessarily. You gotta have your own back. That was my in to Marty as a character. Even just pursuing my acting career really young. People scoff at you, or they tell you it's hopeless for all the reasons you stated before. And I really related to that, and it made me channel a part of myself in my early 20s and my late teens, being from New York and feeling like, you gotta have your own back,
It's interesting because when I first saw the movie, I went and sat with Josh, and one of these things with him, and I sort of said, Josh, what's the movie about? And he started kind of bullshitting me. But immediately I thought, this is actually a movie, not like about Josh. This is a movie about being an artist, coming from a place, having a tremendous amount of ambition, feeling like maybe it's too outsized, you don't deserve it, feeling tethered to the people who you grew up with and who are around you, finding yourself a hustler and needing to do what you have to do, having feelings of relationships, but having those tensions with, what else, other ambitions you want to have. And that messiness, to me, is what makes it human. Because the idea that there's all those good people and there's bad people, I think, is basically a sort of a collective mind. We're all subject to these competing influences, and when you have that feeling that I think Josh did, and I would guess that you did, which is, here I am, I'm young, but I see the world and I want to take it on and eat it all and fucking do the whole thing, but oh shit, I've got these people that I grew up with, and how do I relate to those people versus where I am now? And all of that ambition is so suffused in the movie, but the thing that makes it human to me is humiliation. It's also what made me know this is about show business, because there's so much humiliation kind of along there. It's like the ping pong with the fucking seal. You know what I mean? Like you find yourself on The View going like, Jesus Christ. Man, shots of The View, man. Not against The View, but pick your own thing, you know what I mean? But just like, all right, I can eat the hot chicken wing, I guess. What does this have to do with the movie? You know what I mean? It's internet content. Oh, man. And some guy's fucking spanking your ass. It's because, I want to fucking go to Japan. And I can be great. And then, to have to throw the game. You don't present this, idealized version of somebody. You present the warts and all version of somebody who has the boldness in their ambition. And the self-awareness to know, maybe some of these choices I should be doing, and I know they're, who was also getting arrested at his home by his relatives to go back and work at the fucking shoe store. This is about what it is to try to say, I want to be an artist, I do have these ambitions to step out of this life that's expected of me, and then find, that you need to have that hubris, and also you're running against walls. But if you had shied away from getting spanked, by that fucking asshole. That guy, what a great asshole. I mean, one of the greatest. I never seen that came on camera 5 seconds. I was like, I hate this fuck. Really, how did you approach that in terms of just getting at? Because it's one thing to say to be self-conscious, Joe, as a character. How difficult was it for you? Did you just go, okay, Josh, I'm with you? Had you learned to take all of that second guessing out? Or you just thought, what is your...
I feel like I was totally comfortable in Josh's hands, like a Robert Pattinson in Good Time or Sandler and UNCUT GEMS, and they don't play, quintessentially likable guys necessarily. You're still rooting for them. And just tangentially, what you said about the movie being about artistry, I really believe that. And also, I know you're a Red Sox fan, a Patriots fan, a sports fan, and but I found my way into that too. It's like I'm a big WWE fan from my core too, and I feel like I always loved WWE growing up because it was somewhere between theatricality and sports, and it was right in the middle, and just point being, I felt like table tennis here was a metaphor for me and acting, or all that hip hop that I grew up loving, and any sort of nastiness in the character. I don't know, I felt like it came with the territory. Bob Dylan, a complete unknown, he's in the history of what we know to be true about Bob Dylan, whether it's true or not, he wasn't quote unquote likable at every corner. But it was in service to his artistry, to his guitar, to his lyrics, to his poetry. And here it's, the music in a complete unknown. Here is, a guy playing table tennis. That's why I felt a deep affinity for it, because like he takes it so seriously. When if you're from New York, I'm guessing it's like this, you're from Boston too. Your thing is your personality. If you're living in a tenement, if you're living in a box, your thing that you're great at, that's exclusively your worldview. And Marty's got the thick glasses, he lives in a life of impairment, and table tennis is a source of confidence, So I related to that deeply. My favorite scene in the movie is with Rachel, where, and I always love this on the page too, he says, I have purpose in this world, and that's not a blessing, that's a burden, that's a sacrifice. I gotta see this through. I felt like that with acting a little bit, it sounds self-aggrandizing, but I gotta speak truthfully to this audience, and it just felt like, okay, I got, based on what my teachers are telling me, based on the feeling I have, I gotta see this through, So this to me was like my dream role, seriously then, and it just meant the world to me. Any part of me in my career, I don't know if you ever felt like this, any part that a perfume company or a fashion would want me to access in a perfume commercial, this was the exact opposite, you know what I mean? Josh wanted something explicitly different here. He's like, how were you actually in your core? And I know I idolize a version of you, like, so I'm sorry you had that experience on Hot Wings.
I actually didn't go on Hot Wings. I was like, what, am I going to throw up and eat wings? What, can I say no? Or I just don't go? And I'm like, I guess you can say no. You can say no to playing ping pong with the seal? I didn't figure that out 30 years late. But the thing is, they teach acting. They tell you know what your character wants, right? And when they teach directing and writing, they teach these sort of notions of there's this arc, a set of things happens in a sequence, and they're kind of linear and knowable. And that's good storytelling. Greatness, art, to me, is understanding that there's 6 different things that people want at once, all the time. And oftentimes they don't even really exactly know. So good acting is supposed to be the opposite. My objective in the scene is, the truth is, a lot of times I don't even know what I fucking want. Do I want to, you know what I mean? I don't know if I want to have a relationship with my brother. I don't know if I want to have this baby with this woman. Do I really want to, go out there and get this dog back? I want the money. These putting yourself and understanding the conflicted nature of people, but also undergirding that with this real central driving, this sort of unbridled humanity of wanting to be alive and engage and do something. And I do think it's about show because of the ping pong. It's sort of like acting. When you just look at it objectively, it's so ignominious. You know what I mean? That we're all putting makeup on and saying our feelings and all. And but something every now and again, something comes along and moves us and touches us. And no matter if this guy does not the perfect things or the right things, but things that we fundamentally understand. The magic of this movie is that I am attached to this coming-of-age story. I'm fixated by this Mrs. Robinson story. I'm appalled and astonished by this flashback to the Holocaust. And then I'm elated watching Michael Jordan, watching these guys play ping pong and bringing art to that. And then by the end of the movie, it's it's like Hoosiers or The Natural. I'm running around my living room. I was here to win a ping pong game. And ultimately to land that with the return and sort of arrival as basic humanity and seeing his child and losing all that, to me, this is the perfect movie to encapsulate the messiness and the kind of fundamental mystery of the human condition. And it doesn't work if at the core you're not feeling it all the way through. And I wanted to just point out that I went back and watched all your other stuff. And you're right, to do Dylan, and you did, I think it was exactly the right, not apologizing for it, not backing away from it, but just trying to find some truth, because here's this genius, and we're fixated by it. But when you play a part, you seem to find the perfect fusion between, this is a character, it's not you, but it is imbued with, but yet it feels utterly natural and fluid. When you're preparing for a character, there's a bunch of different ways that actors do it, and some people don't like to talk about it. If you don't, you tell me fuck off, or you just tell a lie. But how do you approach? Do you think about it physically? Do you think about this is the guy has this accent, or he's going to move this way, or do you just connect emotionally to it, or do you even know?
Yeah, these were the back-to-back roles here. They did a complete unknown in Marty Supreme in the span of 5 months or something, and the approaches are different. Because Bob Dylan's obviously a very known public figure, and that was a challenge. It's sort of daunting in the sense that it can almost become like an impression contest. So somebody go, this guy did better than SNL, and then you did it in an actual, fancy Fox Searchlight movie. Here, there's a physicality approach. Again, it sounds pretentious, but like Baryshnikov and Balanchine, and the way these dancers move, these classic ballet guys, I love having that attitude. The table tennis playing, obviously John McEnroe, Michael Jordan, these guys that were confrontational, Mike Tyson. I love the idea that in ping pong you get like a boxer mentality. And again, it seemed kind of not silly, but like just counterintuitive in a way I like. Otherwise, with Josh, it was about channeling energy. And the first scene we shot in the movie was coming down the street and was shot to be Paris. It was actually New York. It was in Paris. And the first note I got from Josh was more swagger, more attitude, more swagger. And I loved it. So I thought, wow, I've never gotten that note on a movie ever. But in a good way. It was like, yeah, bring more swag. And I was like, fuck. And it blew my mind. That was, I don't know how you feel, but I feel like the first week of a movie or the first 3 days, you're always kind of finding your rhythm. The director, you always feel like the first couple days you do were bad, and I always end up liking those first 3 days. Oh wow, it's actually bringing something kind of fresh and different. So,
it does, and I gotta say, I understand the temptation because you're young and it's a lot, and but to sort of and the modesty and humility that you obviously have. But I don't think there's any need to apologize for trying to do something great. Like, nobody ever did anything great just accidentally. Like, I was actually just trying to be mediocre and showed up, and I did Sistine Chapel. Like, it doesn't work that way. We all aspire, in our way, to bring art to our lives, to do something special, be something great. Like, I think that addition that's so writ large in this movie, it has to be part of being an actor trying to do this, because you have to stretch yourself so much, you have to take so much in the way of risks. And I understand the PR of it all, but I really do think you want to say, yeah, I'm trying to do something great, because if anything else, people will know, like, if you like this performance, then come on with me, try to do something great. That's the point. I think it's kind of beautiful and inspiring. And I also hear all this shit about this Q&A where I just talk. That's the problem with getting an actor and shit. Let me tell you about my work. Dude, you're not in this much. Shut the fuck up. I just think that, we hear all this talk about movies and the quality of movies and changing the movies. Like, this is it, man. This movie is as good as any of those movies that people talk about. They become enshrined in our mind in the special, but this is what it looks like when they just come out. And in 10 years or 20 years, it'll be on the list, and it'll be, and you were young, will be older, and you're telling kids nah, Marty Supreme is actually really what it's all about. So there's something to really celebrate and revel in, that people are doing this, and I really just want to applaud you, because I know from my experience, even when I was your age, a little younger, it's very hard to be like, oh, I want to do something great, I want to do something special. But you're going to give me $6 million to put on an outfit, to kick bad guys. And there's a lot of tension, against that. So you have to have that in you. How do you make choices on the movies that you pick?
No, I've just been lucky working with great directors. Wanted to work with Josh Mangle. The big movies I've done have happened, like with Denis Villeneuve. He happens to also be, one of the best, if not the best filmmaker in my opinion. There you go, got a big Denis shout out.
Excited for Dune.
Excited for Dune. He's got the Marty Supreme jacket on. Let's go.
And I got the pants.
And he's got the pants. It's supposed to be a consumer, man. Right.
I'm ready.
Cool. Yeah. Give me your email after. No, I just feel like I gotta go back on track. Just trying to work with great directors, and I had one thought too. I love what you were saying there, because you're nailing something that's, it sounds pretentious to talk about, but you got all these forces that try to push you in a lot of directions, not only in show, but just in life. And one of my favorite things with this movie is the naivete of being young. It's like, even at 30 years old, if someone, I left college, dropped out of college when I was 17 or 18, if somebody at that age asked me now, should I drop out to pursue my career, I'm old enough now to go, fuck, I don't know if you should really do that. And, you know, Josh said it more poetically than I can say right now. He said the last frame of the movie is like, he said like sometimes you see pictures of your parents before they ever had you, and you go, who were those people? You know, they look so different. And sort of Marty kissing goodbye, a naivete of his dreams, of his youth, of his innocence. And I feel like we're all, especially if we're in this room, we're all film aficionados and passionate about movies. We're all dreamers, we're all artists. You know, it's harder to keep that spirit as you get older. You have to be really intentional about it. And not because people are malicious, but, you know, the world doesn't operate to incentivize you to know what's best for you. You know what's best for you. You know, man, I gotta start a philosophy class or something.
You could like have a career on Instagram, self-help shit. You know, it's that's meaningful to me. Like, and that's interesting. In fact, maybe more interesting than the sort of nuts and bolts of the process. People have their process, and sometimes people have the same process, and the results are different. And it's a function of stuff that's hard to understand. And I can say that it's like, I'm now old enough to say pretentious things. You know, because that's what happens. You get old, you get gray hair, you should be like, yeah, that guy. And then you can be like, listen, the truth is. Like, waste all of you. Why was I saying all this shit when I was younger? I had a lot of those ideas, now I've forgotten them all. That's the downside of getting older. But the one question I do want to ask you about the process, because I've faced this myself in my life, looking at, okay, you have short notice, you got to go do something, and you got to play a guy who's really good at ping pong. And, you know, however all the artists like came together to whatever extent it's you, and some guys Facebook, blah, 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 doesn't really matter. I'm not saying show me strings and we had 2 rabbits and the guy was playing the audience, there was a string on the other, you know, because that kind of ruins it. But I just want to know how much work you did and how successful you feel you got, and what, like, to actually just go, fuck, I gotta get great at ping pong.
It was just that. It was technical work. It was there was no sound person doing any doubling. I'm sure the credits back me up there. If not, someone's fired. And you know, and that was just a really technical exercise. You know, I feel like we were talking about work ethic when we were upstairs. Those are parts of the job I get really proud of because you know, I was watching that Sean Penn movie you recommended me about
Colors.
Yeah, Colors, and I don't know why, but when I was watching it, I was wondering what their on-set life was like. Is there, I guess this is too tangential, but I can't get into that. But as far as the ping pong in this movie, the guitar playing, you know, the other technical exercises that I know in the movies, it's just about being disciplined, and that's where my sports background and how pitiful my ambitions to be a professional athlete are now served me in my acting career.
How much time did you put in just playing ping pong? You have a coach, you do a few hours a day?
It was, when I say 6 years, it doesn't mean every day 6 years, but it was on and off, you know, because Josh approached me about this before COVID, so I had a lot of time, and, you know, practice makes perfect, repetition, and
so that was you doing that?
There's no stunt guy, no, yeah.
That's fucking amazing. I mean, that stuff is just as difficult, you know. I'm like, well, we got face replacement, right? Let's get a guy. Because, but if you can do it, and if you can get there, it has to help, and it has to inform that. When you go into like a scene with like that's her name, like these fabulous actors. I thought that amazing, and I love that the movie kept surprising me with the characters. Again, seeing where the eye black, I'll never forget that. I was like, oh my god, just beautiful. And then her look, you're like, yeah, you know what I mean? It just, this movie's beautiful because it says like, don't make all these assumptions about what you think the world's gonna be. And if the acting's not real, that'll all fall flat. You know, you have to keep calibrating what you think of these performers. When you go into a scene that's gonna be emotional, whether it's the end or any of this stuff, you know, like that's the thing about acting that everybody goes, that's the showy stuff that people remember, and you know, what's your approach to that, and what's your approach to like, do you get at all results oriented? Do you just like have to not care about it? You find yourself just living the person? Like, what's your approach, just in general, trying to find emotional reality because you do so well?
Man, I actually didn't love, you know, it was so explicit in the way the script was written, that last scene, and that can feel torturous.
It sucks. I was like, and then he starts crying.
Yeah, it was explicit like that. I think like in Call Me by Your Name was way more Luca, it was way more poetic, the last scene, and the way it was written. And here was quite explicit, and you know, Josh, I remember Josh like, you don't want to have my kid, like, I was fucked up, man. It was so like, I get it, dude. I know this is supposed to be like a really intense thing, you know. And you get to set, you're obviously nervous. There was one grip I had gotten close with over the course of the shoot. Like the one guy I was allowing myself to talk to, and I got to say, like, don't fuck this up today. And I was like, man, I wish I wasn't talking to you this whole time. I just figured that at the last moment. But no, I think the approach is unique each time. I was, you know, these scenes, the last two scenes are similar to Call Me by Your Name, and they end on the guy weeping. I think they represent different things. There's a different quality to them. I was saying scenes in movies where I gotta be emotional, I always find it way easier to be opposite someone. You know, tethered as opposed to staring at you know, some, you know, you hear the focus shifting.
They didn't have a real newborn shaking off camera.
Yeah.
They were like, the kids went home, Tim, it's a tennis ball. And action.
Sort of, you're right. And also they were switching out the newborn, which was odd.
Like, I just wanted with this one.
Yeah. That's true. And yeah, that's fucked up. There's all sorts of rules, you know, which is obviously very needed. I think like a baby for like 10 minutes at a time. If we for 10 minutes, it should work no minutes at a time. Anyway, that's a whole different subject.
This movie feels like the writing is spectacular. And that it always means something. It's always moving story. It always feels real. But it never ever feels like writing. I didn't read the script. I was actually going to do a movie with Josh before the strike. And then the strike happened, and I was like, and as we coming over, he was like, hey, Josh, we're going to do that movie. He's like, nah, actually, I think I'm going to do this other movie, the ping pong movie. And I was like, yeah, you'll regret that. Doesn't regret it. But when, you know, when you get a script, you look at it like Josh, like, how much freedom do you have to, you feel like I got to say all those lines? Do you feel like it doesn't matter what I say? Is he open to doing that? And do you like to do it?
Absolutely, and what I've learned over the process of doing these Q&As with Josh and Ronnie Bronstein, who co-wrote it, is I think there can be, insecurity is too strong a word, but they don't want their writing to be misinterpreted as juvenile or something. And so we've done Q&As where at times from my school about Dylan, I'll go, maybe, I'm like, okay, over-explaining shit. And now I've gotten it 3 months after the movie being in our 2 months because I see that they don't want their work to be misunderstood, and to the degree that when we're working on it, they really did want me to be ultra memorized, and they were right in doing so. You know, the words are fabulous, and I think because the tone is so chaotic, they were used to the way actors could misrepresent the tone in a very simple example, dropping too many F-bombs or being really chaotic, adding too many ad-libs, and I can see how masterful they were. Probably a good time on UNCUT GEMS going, no, these are like traps for an actor. You know, don't just over-accentuate everything. And their word, you know, even their line delivery is too strong. Even like the whole thing about like, you want to get physical like an ape. You know, and they were so precise about that. And it wasn't particularly funny to me in the moment, or ingenious. And I watched it with many audience and go, oh wow, that's like one of the lines that really hits. You know. Okay, so it sounds like I'm a comedian or something, but they were super intentional. Definitely there was room to improvise. You know, whenever things felt right. You know that scene with Ratso Sloman. Bob Dylan gave him that name, Ratso. He plays my uncle in the movie. He plays Murray. And when I'm getting arrested, there's ample room there. You know, yelling about the toiletries and shit. None of that is scripted, but you gotta. That has to feel like you can't just pause there.
Was that scripted when him and the kid's nephew, the guy, the investor? He's like, give me a coffee. He's like, Trevor, trying to do business here like men. Shut up, give me a fucking coffee.
That was generally, no, I think the like men came in on the day. Ronnie would come in with like that. I was dying. There's many scenes where they're obviously not cutting me, but I was dying, you know, just laughing so hard. That was one of them. My screen was crawling.
When I was younger, I remember like, you know, me and Matthew were in high school and we were like really nerdy, like actor kids that took our shit really seriously. And we watched all the movies, all 70s movies. And it was like, you know, Kate Dustin Hoffman and Pacino and De Niro and you know, all these icons. And then there was like Sean came along and Denzel and there's so many actors that I really looked up to. We watched it over and over and studied them. So I watched Colors. I was like, okay, Duvall and Sean Penn, what are they going to do? You have to see it. Who are the actors that you really admired, like when you were younger, and who are the actors that you respect and look up to now and admire? Not a complete list, obviously, but just comes to mind.
No, well, yourself, obviously, I'm not saying.
That's what I was looking for.
It's the truth. I don't know what the line is now because I haven't haven't seen Shakespeare in Love in a while, but you have such a great pompous actor line in it. I'm forgetting what it is.
The easiest thing in the world for actors to touch into is ego mania.
There you go.
But no, tell me,
I can go section by section, really. Like, my mom works for Actors Equity in New York to this day. It's a stage union in New York, and so she had, brought me to a lot of great plays growing up. Denzel Washington. I just saw a video where he's pronouncing his name correctly. It's Denzel, it's not Denzel. It's like Denzel. That's what he's saying. You gotta correct pronounce it anyway. And
maybe you should know the fuck with people. You've all been saying my name wrong.
And no, but I saw him in many amazing in Fences with Viola Davis on Broadway when I was like 12 years old. Edward Norton and Birdman truly was transformational for me because he's once more playing kind of a pompous version of an actor who thinks he knows everything right, but it's also very inspiring. Joaquin Phoenix in The Master, Leo, basically everything. And then in recent years, man, don't say yourself, no.
That's the right answer for Shakespeare in Love. I think I'm doing a good work.
That's what it
I've
is.
never seen any of my work.
No, that is the one. Shit, I want to give you a good answer. Fucking A. But you know what, I don't want to mispronounce his name. I think his name is David Johnson. He was in The Last Alien.
That's not that hard to pronounce.
Yeah. I know his first name was David. I'm pretty sure I know his last name is Johnson. If anybody knows, please correct me while I'm up here so I don't get killed online. But whoever was in The Last Alien, he's just a fantastic actor. I was blown away. I watched it at the Chinese Theater, and he was phenomenal. I actually couldn't believe it, and he was phenomenal.
I thought there were 15 great performances in this movie. And the hardest thing, in my opinion, to do is have like one or two lines in a movie. You think about it, you get there. By the time, like you're saying, first few days they're hard, right? Then you're going, and you're loose, and everybody's loose, and they know what they're doing, and you got to come in and say, $5.99, ma'am, and you're at home, $5.99, ma'am, and you don't know anybody, and you're tight. And the performers in this, the guy that had to open the safe who you told him, like, I'm gonna look at this, I'm gonna be your manager, I'm gonna tell you what to do. The look on that guy's face was as good as anything. I mean, just looked devastated and betrayed, but also a little tempted and like rageful, like 15 different things going on. An uncle, the guy who owned the dog. I mean, it was, what do you attribute? Is that casting? Is that the environment that creates that? Is that useful to you? Because I just thought, like, everybody, I really believe this. Every single performance matters to hold the world together. It really is a collaborative effort. There's no fucking one person that's doing it. And you had just a sea of great acting in the movie.
No, that's Josh, and I agree with you. I think Gwyneth is incredible.
Gwyneth's amazing.
Odessa, you mentioned earlier, is phenomenal. The quote-unquote non-actors, but they're all fantastic. No, I would give the kudos to Josh there. He assembles this ragtag group of people, and he just gets great performances out of them. And you need to be good on camera once, and he just did a phenomenal job with that. I don't know if it works. Just keep answering that. Everyone was fine.
You had Jack. You had an amazing crew in the movie. Obviously, Darius. You had the best camera operator in the world, Colin Anderson. You had Jack Fisk, the production who's a legend. And Jack is he's a master. He's a genius. How much of an impact does? And I also watched that movie. And it was like it's a great example of production design. You've seen a million movies. Period, New York, and you're like, looks like it's at a central costume, it's a prop, you just can tell that, okay, this world ends at the edge of frame. This thing felt so real throughout, and so textured and so full. Like, what was your experience, Jack, and what kind of difference did it make to have that level of technicians and artists around you?
No, it was unbelievable. It was totally next level, and it didn't feel like a performance movie. It didn't feel like, oh, we're gearing this up for an actor or the ensemble. Everyone felt like they were firing. Jack Fisk, Ben just said it, but this guy's probably one of, if not the greatest living production designer. He feels like he's creating an environment to shoot a documentary within. I asked Jack what films influenced him in this regard for this movie, and he gave me this great line where he said he doesn't pull from other movies because he feels like he's pulling down from watered down life. In other words, he's trying to pull from how things actually were. Lawrence's, which is the table tennis center that you see in the film, which is the first black-owned business in Times Square in the 1950s, Jack pulled the actual city plans. He went to the archive in New York and pulled the actual floor plans with Josh's wife to build out the actual location. So, and also, you know, this stuff wasn't cynical. This is to say it wasn't like overall hunting for awards, because you get your mind to try to get awards in a ping pong movie, or, you know, or a ping pong thriller. It didn't make any sense. So it just felt like everyone's. And also, it was this amazing combination. You said Colin Anderson. That's a deep cut name drop, because he's a camera operator who also did one battle after another, but he's really on another level. And but also, Jaco Polizzi was the amazing costume designer. He had this, I thought, this perfect amalgamation of the old guard and Jack Fisk. I mean, our gaffer was a legendary gaffer who did Hoosiers. Who literally did Hoosiers. And
is it Ian?
Yeah, it is Ian.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Damn, man, you're in, man.
You directing, this is who you gotta know.
Yeah,
It's like casting, you go, okay, this DP, yeah, I mean, it's like, it's all of it. It all works together to make it great. That's the truth, anybody who gives you this, like, these people come in, not it, these are artists.
No, we had an all-star team. In fact, I thought we had so many quote-unquote alphas, not to use that word, but it almost like, it made you realize there should really only be room for one, because Darius, who's an amazing cinematographer, but also he takes his time, and now you have these contact lenses, because Josh wanted my eyes to be beadier in the movie, so I'm wearing lenses to offset my vision, and I'm wearing corrective lenses on top of the contact lenses. But then, the first day we shot, and I felt like Josh was kind of testing me, so I didn't want to take them out to show him I was game, and I got an eye infection overnight. This is 100%, the photos are nasty, I came in the next day like this, and I was kind of my vision's very important to each Josh. Which is a totally normal thing.
Man, I'm looking with my eyes, Josh.
In the moment, I was like, I hope he doesn't think I'm soft, now I'm like, oh my god, my eye was swollen. But the point being, from that point forth, I would say to Josh, all right, give me a 5-minute warning before the shot, and then I'll put the lenses in. But then all of a sudden, Darius is taking his time. I want to have the 5 minutes. Ian, there's a legendary guy said, I need 20 minutes for the lights, and then, you knock off 3 shots a day or something. I don't know how this relates to what we're talking about.
I do want to go back to Gunez, who you mentioned, who I thought was just spectacular. Like, also deeply many different things that once in every scene. The tension, I thought, was one of the great, crazy, weird, love flirt scenes, whatever you want to call it. That phone call, culminating and throwing the fucking apple into the thing. Oh my God. And the way that the subtext was present in that, like, how did you approach that? Did you know her? Did you talk about it ahead of time? Did you kind of just let it happen? Because, the chemistry is one of those things where it's impossible to know. Like, and you guys had it, just I thought it was spectacular. What was it like? How did you approach it? How did you like working with him?
I was kind of in awe of her because of all the work she's done. She's kind of institutional, and I said it before, but I felt naive in realizing how good she was. We actually got, wow, she's really good. And I thought, well, duh, people have known this forever. So, but I love that scene, that phone call scene. I feel like there's versions of it that were a lot more lecherous on my part. And, they cut away from me. And
that's why I have a director.
There you go, exactly.
I didn't want lecherous.
And, no, it's true. And I love that.
It was easy going. It was like,
she was super easy.
Did you get to know her? Did you keep the distance and tension and let that be?
I thought she was really warm. The amazing thing with Gwyneth is she was unbothered. I think everyone else, including myself, was desperate to be there. And I don't feel like Gwyneth, her life is awesome.
That's Gwyneth.
Her life
Yeah.
Her life was awesome, and it was going to be awesome regardless.
Oh, she hasn't worked. That's the other thing, coming back and doing something like that. But I think that affect was, to me, seemed part of what she was doing, because that character had this lovely, poignant, tragic combination of having felt as though she was this person and a sort of sorrow at the way her life had kind of delivered her, but also wanting to maintain the dignity of it. Talking about one of the great cuts ever in a movie is like the cut between when they tell her, oh, get on the phone, we're going to hear the review. And the next shot is the guy walking out the door. I guess the party's over. I don't know. I've had those reviews. It's like, it was amazing. And then to make credible, you know, the ceiling that was costume jewelry and the degree to which there was a kind of a dance, so that, again, it speaks to this thing of typically movies, they're done really well. They're faithful to the one central idea that they have. We gotta get a character from here to here to there. And you allow it to be multiple things at once. So does she hate you? Does she love you? Is she attracted to you? Does she like your attention? Does she feel contemptuous of herself, of you, of her husband, of money? And all of that was just the soup that was present, but there was something about what was happening where I believe you were, why you were going back and forth, but for her to be going out, you know, to the park and all, again, like having this vulnerability and then shutting down again is what makes it innately human, and that takes, you know, that's very, very hard to do. And I know her and I admire her, she's a great actress, but I thought that was like just an astonishing performance. It's one of those really, really special films that, you know, honestly, I just am glad that I was alive to see it. It's an honor to sit here and talk to you. I think you're a guy that's, you know, once every 30 years or so, somebody comes along who is magnetic and fascinating, but also deeply talented, and who has the integrity and the sort of bravery to try to make their own way, rather than follow the way that things are supposed to be, what they've been done. I see you doing that, you're ahead of the fucking game at 30. You're, to me, what like James B. Dean would have been if he hadn't got killed. I can't wait to see the rest of your career. I hope you don't drive your Porsche too fast. Thank you very much.